Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us for a special stream. Should be available on the BB YouTube, Crash's YouTube channel, and both of our X accounts. We are doing a special market discussion and TA collaboration. My name is Max. I'm the CEO of Because Bitcoin, joined by a friend who goes by Crash's Clay. Oops, hang on. Sorry, I had the YouTube up in the background. Joined by a friend named Crash's Clay. We got a lot to discuss today. I put a funny little background on here. This is the "It's Over" picture. It's a very layered meme here at Because Bitcoin, but a lot of you guys that have been around for a while know what this means. It's a meme. It's just gauging sentiment. But anyways, the last time that Crash and I did a stream together was maybe a few months ago, give or take. We come in with no plan, and we both just talk about what we're seeing in the markets. And usually we both learn something, we have fun, and of course, at the same time, you guys learn something and have fun. So that's the strategy for today. A lot of charts, a lot of discussions. Crash recently dropped a video with some of his thoughts on perhaps where US equities are at contextually, I guess locally, and also on the higher timeframes potentially. I have some thoughts. I didn't catch the whole video, but I have seen the analysis. We're going to talk about that. And then some of my thoughts for US equities and then also crypto as we head deeper into Q4 and get really close to the election. So anyways, guys, before we get too far into it, do us a solid. Let's get this out of the way right away. If you're excited, hit that like button. Subscribe to both of our YouTube channels and X accounts if you don't already. I'm sure that you guys do. Share the content. Call a friend. Call your grandma. Call your mom. Call your dad. Call your mailman. They need to see this, all right? Show some love. We're going to have a great time today. I don't know how long we're going to go for. I feel like last time we said an hour and we went for like 2.5. So we're just going to roll with the punches and see where it goes. But Crash, bro, happy we got to do this again. It's been a long time. A lot of price action. A lot of price action has occurred since we last did this. So lots to talk about and update people on. But how are you, bro? How you been?
I'm good. Just slightly concerned about where the stock market is at. And we'll go over, but every single September and October, the stock market tops going into the election. And so, obviously the last two times that happened, Bitcoin was unaffected. So hope Bitcoin will be unaffected by that. But obviously, Bitcoin has ETFs now, and that may actually make us more tied to the stock market. We don't know yet, so let's see.
Yeah, it's a really interesting debate to have. Like, has Bitcoin kind of merged with legacy finance in a way because of these new vehicles that allow you to actually get direct exposure to spot Bitcoin through these ETFs and now ETH, right? We are kind of being gobbled up by these Goliaths within legacy finance. But here's what we should do, man. How about you pull up your chart first? We got you down below. Maybe just walk us through, like, what are you seeing right now? Let's go over. I mean, I know we probably need to discuss your most recent local prediction on stocks. I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to see us go back and forth about that. But yeah, let's talk about stocks and crypto. Like, just frame the market for us, bro. Like, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, so check this out. I know you're in the camp of the dollar is going to break down and then the bull run begins, right? And so recently, right, the dollar was just coming down for months, right, from April down to this is October. And so right here, everyone thinks that the dollar is going to break down, and instead, right, and a big reason why the dollar is going down is probably because everyone's front running and anticipating that the US would lower interest rates. So that makes the dollar weaker. But then once they actually lower the interest rate, and everyone thinks that the market's going to break down, or at least the dollar, what does it do? It actually bottoms and it starts pumping from here. And so we had bullish divergence there on daily, comes down to the bottom of the range. Everyone in the world and their mothers thinks that the bull run, like the beautiful part of it, that where everything just goes up only, it was going to happen like right here, right? And here we are, we're about to go up, because like basically if dollar drops like from there, from 100 down to 92, for example, that's your bull run. And then bam, it doesn't happen. Instead, we get this bullish divergence and we're pumping from there. And so right now, that's your bottom in the dollar. And if that's your bottom in the dollar, it's Usually, Bitcoin and the market is going to go the opposite way of that. And so basically, I think the bottom in the dollar is right there for now. And then obviously, I think that the stock market is topped right here at 58.20. And I think we're going to see it pull back at 4 to 8%. But the thing is, man, you look at this chart and, okay, the last pullbacks in the stock market were 7%. This pullback here was 10%. So this one, 4 to 8% minimum. And you just got to hope that crypto doesn't move with the stock market because, typically if the stock market dips 10%, you're going to see crypto dip 20%, for example. And in that case, if crypto continue moving with the stock market, a 20% dip there for Bitcoin would take us down to that low again, right? Which is like 48K. And obviously none of us want to see that. What we want to see is the dollar breaks down and the golden bull run that everyone's waiting for starts, but it's
Mhm.
not as simple as everyone always thinks, right? And so once again, everyone thinks the dollar is going to break down, bull market is going to begin, and it's actually the bottom for the dollar right there right now. And there's really no reason for us to go below that low in the dollar at the moment, especially when you consider that every single September and October stock market tops going into the election. And also, by the way, look at this pattern right here that we're doing in the S&P 500. So over here, this was all-time highs, right? And this was going into 2022. So you had the same exact pattern where you had this first drive higher, come down, second drive higher, come down, and that third drive higher overshoots those first two tops. Meanwhile, you have bearish divergence and you have declining volume on the way up right here. So check this out. This pattern right here is like literally exactly what we're doing right now. You had top one, top two, and those two moves lower as well. And then you have this third drive higher, which slightly overshoots those two tops. And then you have, once again, bearish divergence. So to me, by the way, you also have the bearish declining volume. Less and less buyers are coming in as we go higher here into, once again, what always happens is going into election, you have major dips in September and October in the stock market. It makes a lot of sense. You have the same pattern repeating right here. You have that same exact pattern repeating right here. Okay. And it just makes sense. For example, when you're at all-time highs going into an election where it's very 50-50, right? It's very close. Who's going to win? For example, if you're holding solar stocks or you're holding oil stocks, those price movements are going to be very dependent on who wins that election. So is it feel safe and smart to hold, if you're all in on oil, does it make sense to hold, a ton of oil if Kamala wins, for example? That could, send those oil stocks lower, for example. And so, or if you hold solar and you want to Kamala win, would you hold the solar stocks if Trump's winning, or are they probably going to see a decline? Or, short term, the price action in reaction to that could be bearish, right? If Trump won instead of Kamala. So it just makes sense when you're at all-time high going into election that you want to risk going into a very political thing where, the prices of so many industries depends on that election. You know what I mean? So it just makes sense to de-risk going into election. And I think that's why, there's so much uncertainty going into the election, who's going to win. That's why you see them unload their positions always in September, October before the election. And then a lot of times they just buy back after the election. So anyways, when you have this pattern repeating again, you have bearish divergence, bearish, less and less volume coming in, and you have the perfect time to de-risk before the election. I think this is the perfect setup for a local top at the very least in the stock market,
Mhm. So I've seen a couple different things from you. So I agree. Like for one, pattern recognition is the secret to trading, right? A lot of people don't believe in fractals. They're like, oh, it just does. You can't properly apply context and it doesn't work. Like finding your edge is really just a matter of screen time and saying, I've seen this before. There's a certain probability, not a guarantee, but a probability that this will happen again because conditions rhyme, right? So I think it's solid to recognize that, hey, we've potentially set a deviation, like a shallow deviation with a bearish divergence with low or like falling volume in price discovery for SPX. Where have we seen this before? But let's just get one thing super clear. Like, are you suggesting this is a local de-risking spot for an October sell for US equities, or potentially the start of a multi-year downtrend like we saw in 2022?
Yeah, so that's the thing. When you have the pattern, right? If you just dragged and dropped the pattern, which where is this thing, dude? Is over
The
somewhere over
fractal
here.
tool. I
Mars
don't know. I
pattern. Yeah.
saved them. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So and if you actually overlay that um right here. Wait. No, I drew that wrong. It's from this part to there. Like, that's what I'm saying. We don't know the severity of a drop. We just know that, hey, the same exact topping pattern is there, right? Like it's
Mhm.
exactly the same. You see it? We're following that to the T. You see that?
I
So
potentially see it.
no,
I
it's
see
literally the exact same, bro. It's not different at all. And so when you have the same topping pattern that led us to a year of decline, all I know, see, here's the thing. I can't know the length of decline. I can't know how severe the decline. I can just know with confidence, I believe, that this is a top. Now, where does that top take us to? How low does it take us to? I don't know right now, right? Like when I shorted Bitcoin at 69K, I knew that that was a top locally at the very least, right? But I couldn't know with absolute certainty that you're going to go to 15K from 69K, right? And so whenever you short a top, it's a different thing than knowing where it takes you fully, you know what I mean? Ahead of
Mhm.
time. So all I have confidence in right now is that that's top. But here's the thing. Usually, if you look at the last elections, right, what happens for the S&P? Okay, so it tops in September, in October, going into the election, right? And then bam, it's falling into the election, and then right after the election in November, bam, up only from there, right? So you can see the election
Right,
hits, it goes up only. Okay, let's go
right.
back to the other time. And so pretty much the last 3 times for the S&P, um, it was just up only after. Okay, and I guess I didn't, map out all these times yet on this specific chart. It must have been on another one. But okay, over here, once again, you see sharp drop going into the election in October. It dumps 9% going into election, right? This is the peak of October. And then bam, right here is the end of October. And then bam, look, November hits, the election hits, up only, right? So that's
Mhm.
2020. That's 2016. If we go back to 2012, once again, you see 2012. September, October. Look, this is September, right?
Yeah.
Um, you're topping in September, right? You're topping in October again. And now let's zoom in because I know it's a little small for everyone. So September, October, right? What does it do? Look, market is at not all-time highs, right? But it's at its highs at the moment there in that last year or two. So it's at its highs, right? And then September, October tops going into the election. And look, election hits in November and it's up only from there. Okay, so 2012, 2016, and 2020, same shit happens every time. Top in September, October, top in September, October, fall into the election. Once the election comes, price is saved, it goes up only from there. But then if you work your way back to now 2008, okay, this is the cool thing. This is the main thing I wanted to point out to people is that every time in September and October, what's happening? The market is you're not making any money being bullish on the stock market in the months leading to the election. September, October. You buy the stock market in the months leading to the election and look what happens. Once again, collapses. I mean, obviously that's 2008, but that's the thing. It's not just 2008 where this happens. This happened in every other election year ahead of it. So once again, October, and it's just down only from there. And then this in 2008, obviously we're not saved by the election, so it takes a while to recover there. So yeah, I mean that's the major point. That's the major pattern to notice is like every single time Downward price action comes September, October, right? Right here, right here, right here, and right here, right? 9% drop in October here of 2020. So that's my whole thing. When you have the same pattern as then, and you have that tendency to set a peak in October or September going into election, this is the perfect time to de-risk from the stock market perspective and dip, right? Now, luckily for all of us, crypto diverges from the stock market in those months, and maybe you would want to show people that on your screen where your charts are a lot more clean and pretty.
Well, you've got some great charts too, but I would love to comment on some of this stuff because here's the thing. I could see a local correction for SPX. All right. I just jumped over to my chart. Let me know if you need it back for something. We can just kind of go back and forth.
I'll take mine off. I want to watch yours.
Okay. So for one, you're not wrong to suggest that US equities are in a potentially vulnerable spot, right? Like let's obviously this is the example you were talking about. So this was the top, last cycle, and we kind of had these two highs, and then you had this really predatory, trap up here, and then they sent it down. Okay. Now, obviously, with fractals, context is key because at this same time here, the US was entering the fastest tightening cycle in regards to interest rates, the effective federal funds rate, the fastest rate hiking cycle that we've ever had, right? And this triggered a pretty nasty correction for US equities that didn't send us back above all-time highs until, 2024, and this top was in 2022. It was basically a 2-year bear market, right? And it was catalyzed, of course, by something that was horrible and a lot of shock, surprise 50 and 75 basis point hikes that spooked the markets. And of course, that was coupled with, statistical outlier high year over year US headline CPI. I mean, back here, in the bear market in 2022, we had US CPI over 9%, right? So there was a lot of like economic factors that in confluence with this beautiful little bear trap at the highs here that catalyzed, the momentum actually down, right? And here's the thing. I'm not trading equities right now, but I do watch them very closely. I think it can be potentially dangerous to naked short before any confirmation, right? I like that you talked about this example. This right here is back after the COVID crash of 2020, right? We had a lot of stimulus going on. They dropped interest rates to, historically low levels. We were above the previous all-time high right here. And you saw this same kind of potential trap right here where you put in this kind of weird like 1-2 drive down, potential deviation up, and the economy was still largely shut down at this point, right? Like COVID was still very much so gripping our economy. And people, I remember I was actively trading during this time, like they were like, oh, run this back, like we're not going to go much higher than this. But then of course, like shorting too early led to, it was just a continuous grind up, right? Because things weren't breaking, they were actually improving. Like the economy was shut down, but there was so much manufacturing of, I guess bull market conditions with dirt cheap money. And even though we had higher unemployment, we had this sort of Goldilocks window of stimulus where they effectively doubled our monetary base and the M2 money supply within like an 18-month period. So I think it's just important to recognize, and I know that you do, like there's a lot of these little like bear traps that can get set, over and over and over again. And it's an extremely difficult thing to do. And then even like right here before the all-time high, like this looked terrible right here, right? We could easily look at this and go, yeah, that's your deviation. Oh, and look, we broke our kind of normie diagonal trend. This thing is cooked, and then it just starts moving back up. So calling a top on equities, like for one, it's a very, very tough thing to do, right? I actually personally like to wait for as much possible confirmation as I possibly can get for equities, because if you want to talk about a manipulated Ponzi, there is no greater manipulated Ponzi in the entire world than the S&P 500. They manufacture this thing to go up, right? If you look at this thing on the weekly time frame, I mean, it looks like a shit coin. I mean, look at this thing. This is why all of our parents have so much money if they've been mindlessly DCAing into their 401ks, because it's just manipulated, right? Like they don't let it fail. Oh, COVID happens, the economy shuts down, they double the money supply. There's no reason we should have done this, right? But I see the pattern you're talking about. But I like to just be as careful as I can. Like, I mean, for example, if we're talking about stocks here specifically, okay, I like to wait for a real high time frame break of trend, even if that means I'm slightly late to the move. I would rather wait for, you have this long barrel of bullishness, right? It's just like a mechanical twop upwards, right? They're just burning any put premiums, and this thing rips. And then I'd rather personally look to short like the confirmed break of structure, like this, no new all-time high, and then buy some long dated puts and start targeting lower levels like that. Like I like to wait for as much because it's so tough to call a top. And if you do it, like God bless you. That's not exactly something that I feel super comfortable with. And for me, that high time frame trend is probably more like right here. Could we talk, could we zoom in and say locally, we have this, this little trend line right here. If this breaks, could we visit the lower one? Yeah, we could. But I am not super confident in saying like your global top is in just because I know how manipulated this thing is and how many little bear traps they constantly set. But you're not wrong, in my opinion, to recognize, very obvious signs of momentum dwindling, which could be, the September, October seasonality, especially leading into an uncertain time, which is the election. We're seeing bear divs printing on kind of the mid time frames, mid to higher time frames. Volume is declining a little bit and we're just kind of floating above the all-time high. But for me, it's a little bit early. One other thing that I think, really helps me view this is I like to look at the VIX. Okay. So when times are uncertain, you typically get like a VIX blowout, right? So people are buying, VIX calls where you can see if we overlay these together, you can see the VIX perfectly lines up with like every major drop. Right, they have a negative correlation. Okay, every big drop, the premium on these VIX calls, assuming most people are playing them, to hedge for downside volatility, these begin to really print when you get a bad piece of economic data or a bear market, and you can see how a lot of these drops for the S&P 500 happen. I mean, all of them as the VIX starts to blow out. Okay, we just recently had one, so let's take a look at a couple examples here. So going all the way back, let's look at the weekly time frame. We'll put the S&P 500 in log mode. Actually, I need more data than this. Let's just put up SPX. We're going to go back a little bit further, okay? So we'll get rid of this. Oops, I don't know what move to new pane above. I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so the S&P 500 is above and the VIX is below. So typically what we'll see after like a VIX blowout like this one. And by the way, the VIX spike that we had, when we were having, we had basically our surprise US unemployment print in October when it was expected at like 3.9 and it came in at 4.3. That was bad, right? That was bad. But we haven't seen the VIX blow out to levels like this really ever. There's only a handful of times, right? In recent years, 2008, COVID, and then just recently, right? When we had that surprise unemployment print, then I think there was like US dollar JPY fears, right? Like Japan basically liquidated itself in trader terms. Okay, but what you typically see after a VIX blowout like that is you'll get, a pretty nasty drop. Obviously, this one was a multi-year recession catalyzed by the housing crisis here in the U.S., where basically banks were engaging in predatory lending practices with variable rate notes. And when these interest rates began to rise, people couldn't afford to pay their mortgages. But what you typically see after a VIX blowout is a long period of like kind of compression, right? Where you'll have these little pullbacks and things like that, but you'll see the VIX just get crushed and crushed and crushed after the blowout. And then you just get this like big, big move up, and then you'll have another blowout when you finally kind of break that trend line for the VIX. And then you get, another pullback here. And then, look what happened over here. We had our VIX blowout because of COVID. And then you basically just saw, this giant compression right here. I probably looks better in log just so you can actually see it. You had your VIX blowout because of COVID. and then you just had vol premiums just getting crushed the entire time. And then we had our blowout right here. Now, some will say, like, oh, that wasn't big enough. Well, I mean, I guess I don't make the rules. We had a VIX blowout to a level that's comparable to the dot-com crisis and the great financial crisis, the dot-com bubble collapse and the great financial crisis. And in my view, it's more likely that we're going to do what we've always done with the VIX and just see volatility just get crushed again. And before we have another like big, bear market or something like that, we're going to just see like, volatility get crushed. And you could even look at it more like this and say, look at actually what caused, look at what, look at how this called the top, right? You had your COVID volatility blowout right here for the VIX. And then you basically saw the VIX just get crushed, trend line rejection, 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 rejection. And then right up here, what did we see? We saw the VIX starting to break out. And then, of course, that was your top, right? So it's never happened before where you've had a VIX spike to 60, followed by another giant VIX spike to 60 within like recent months. In my view, it's more likely going to do this, like lower highs, drop, market goes up, lower high, market goes up. And you're gonna enter one of these like grind higher type of scenarios. And additionally, on top of that, I'm not seeing the catalyst right now for some major risk off event in equities personally, right? Like if you're seeing it, like we can talk about it. But if we're going to enter a recession, this would be the first time that we've ever seen a major recession in the US where everybody still had a job. I mean, if you look at the US unemployment rate, go to the daily. We are at historically low levels for US unemployment. Like US unemployment came in this morning under expectations. We had a really solid print at 4.1%. Okay. So typically when you have these recessions, you'll start to see unemployment actually like curling up. All right. Here's US unemployment. We'll just ignore COVID because that was, 3 or 4 standard deviation move away from our mean. But what you'll typically see is you'll actually see unemployment, creeping up, like for multiple months, begin to actually print like higher numbers. And then you get a big risk off event. So what we're seeing right here is actually the opposite. Like we've seen kind of a normalization of our labor market here in the US. But you're not going to get some major risk off event if people have jobs. That's usually the last domino to fall is like initial jobless claims, people claiming unemployment for benefits start to climb. And then you'll start to see, year over year unemployment spike. And that's just simply not what we're seeing. Like both of these, major sell-offs back here and, right back here in 2000
They were
before the
pulling up, which is what we look like we're doing now too.
No,
To
but
me,
but
to
but
me,
we're
it
not. We
looks.
just said the 2 previous prints were lower. So we had 4.3 in August and then 4.2 and today 4.1. So it's
But
actually
wait,
trending down.
look at those last 2 ones in December and April you have pointed out. They both had lower prints. Well, it depends where you put your black line, but they both had a lower print before they went much higher. You see what I'm saying? So I would
Yeah, I mean,
say
I would remain dated. So like I was talking with my guys this morning and I was like, if we get a US unemployment print, the expectation this morning was 4.2. I said if we get like a 4.4, we're trending up. We're trending up. That's a problem. So whether the data is manipulated because there's an election coming up, I'm not really of the opinion that they do that, but maybe it was politically motivated. We're trending down. The previous 2 prints were trending down. So if we start to get data that suggests like we are trending up, then I say it's pretty obvious what's about to happen. Then you're going to get a major risk off event. But I don't think you can get a major risk off event. That doesn't mean you can't get a correction. Like, for example, right over here in last October, which I'll put up the Bitcoin example for this as well, you had unemployment under 4%, and you had a giant seasonal correction, from July all the way through basically the end of October, where the S&P 500 dipped almost 12%, and we had record low unemployment. So you could get a local technical correction. But in terms of like a multi-year
that's what I'm
recession,
mainly calling for is a 4 to 8% correction going into the election, and then I'm praying that it doesn't turn into something much worse and bigger than a 4 to 8% correction. Because here's the thing, man, if you're looking at data prints, by the time the data starts looking bad, the market's already began its descent lower. So data is lagging to the market almost always, I feel like. So the reality is, if you're going to anticipate a market drop, of course, later on it's going to start crashing when the data starts coming in bad. You know what I mean? So usually, to be honest, good data is more likely to happen closer to a top than on the way down anyways, you know? So to me, I don't really worry about that data in the short term, because at the end of the day, when Bitcoin is at 69K, everyone was talking about how incredible and how bullish everything is and how good the data is all around the board, and everything is so good. And well, when everything is so good, when the data is so good, it's usually that's when you're actually closer to the top. So to me, I'm just looking based off the pattern, which, by the way, the pattern you showed in 2020, which I also have on my chart, which is when Joe Biden won the election, that is the same pattern as now. So God willing, for my net worth and yours and everyone watching, hopefully that's exactly what we get. You know, if you want to go back and show that example in 2020, like that would be a dream come true. Because I'm gonna lose my ass if we drop, probably, you know, or if we drop more than 8% in the stock market, like if it actually ends up being something bad. And so yeah,
Are you talking about right in
yeah,
here?
yeah, yeah, right
This
there. Yeah, exactly right there. That's the same pattern as now, pretty much. And so we could get that too. And, God willing, we do, because I'm all in long besides this little head short I have, you know? And so I can easily see that playing out too. But my main thing though is I do think, okay, in that example, what happened from the peak of October? The market dumped like what is that, 8, 9%, right? So that's what I think is going to happen at the least. And then once again, if everything is good, hopefully Trump wins and we go up only, just like there in 2020 after that. But I
Mhm.
think people do underestimate that there's a real chance that, what, like I said, what am I confident in? That I believe there's a top at 5,800 and we get a 4 to 8% drop. And so as long as it's just a 4 to 8% drop, well, based on 2020, 2016, 2012, crypto was just fine. So as long as this top, if I'm right, even that it's a top in the stock market, which I do think it is, right? But that's the thing. I've put it in tweet. I've put it a bunch of times. I'm like, this, I believe it's a local top in stocks, and we
Yeah.
just need to pray that it doesn't turn into something more severe. Because here's the thing, how many people call the top in the stock market or Bitcoin and stuff? Very little. And a big reason because of that is because everyone thinks everything is so good and they think no way it could ever top here. And of course, that's where it does top. At 69,000 Bitcoin, almost nobody would thought it could top there, because everyone thought it was going to 100K. And right now, also,
So
nobody thinks it could top, and it could top, man. It never tops when it's obvious, first off, right? And
so
right now
the
is a
there
very not obvious time to
the
top.
the there were some okay, I would say it wasn't super obvious, right? Like, I'll be honest, I was bowled up in the upper 60s. Like, when we got back above 64K, I was like, "It's time for 100K," you know? And then I started to de-risk down in this region, right? Probably, like, early 2022. But there were some serious concerns because of this bottom chart here. So SPX is up top, Bitcoin in the middle, and then US inflation rate year over year is down below. You can see that, as soon as COVID hit right here and they started stimulating and printing a ton of money, they basically doubled our money supply during this time period. You saw at the 69K top, US year over year inflation went from like nothing basically to over 7%, right? And those that of course study, history of these markets recognize that, and Bitcoin doesn't go back that far. Typically, when you get really high inflation, there has to be some sort of like cutting cycle or hiking to cutting cycle that happens. Where then, if we add, the effective federal funds rate down below, you can see that they started cutting rates here. And, we had really high inflation. So it was kind of this like, and actually, people were losing their jobs over here too. But it's important to contextualize like what is the reason behind some of this stuff, right? Like I love the fractals, I do, but this was a cause for concern, right? Not that I took heed to it, right? In hindsight, it's easy to say. SPX was topped right
Wait, but
here.
look at when Bitcoin topped and look at where US inflation was, right? It was on the rise. And so the reality is, you know,
Inflation was at 6.5 when Bitcoin topped, roughly. And
yeah,
the
it's on
US's
the rise.
target
It's
is
on the rise.
2%.
Right, but inflation's on the rise, it's on the rise here, so the only way inflation numbers would have helped you actually understand anything here is if you go back and look at history and then you see, okay, when inflation gets above what, 7%, that's when it's bad, you know what I mean? But the reality is Bitcoin topped before the inflation numbers hit that, So in this case, to me, this shows that looking at some of these data does not help you predict the top, right? Because actually Bitcoin topped before inflation got to where, it was a concern. So by the time shit is a concern, the top was already in.
Mhm. No, that's fair. I mean, you're right. Like, if you want to be if you want to be, not you necessarily, but like if you want to be well in front of these moves, once the data's out there in the open, it's already been digested by the smart money. Like, I will 100% agree with you there. It's just when we have inflation trending down to the Fed's long-term target of 2%, which is right here, and this is their long-term target. Like, this is where they like to be around right here is, just 2%. That's their goal. They've been super clear about that. And you have the cost of capital actually dropping with the labor market remaining resilient, right? So let's put up the effective federal funds rate again, and we can hide this right here, and we'll put US unemployment back up. Like, these are the things that typically mark the top. It's what the Fed is doing in regards to cost of our capital being the effective federal funds rate in tandem with the labor market in the US. Because, like, if people have jobs, you're not getting a recession, right? Because people, they still have money to spend, and they still have money that comes out every single week and twops into the S&P 500. Like, it just doesn't. If people are employed, you're not getting a recession, right? So, I mean, let's even look back talking about equities here. Like, look at what happened after we got our first batch of cuts over here. This was in 2019. Like, if somebody had said, "Oh, they're cutting rates here in 2019," this pattern to me here, let's shrink this down a little bit. This pattern to me looks scary, right? We're sitting above the previous all-time high. This looks like a head and shoulders pattern, right? Head, shoulders, whatever. Here's your little trend line. If you had just been like, "Oh, they're cutting rates," and didn't properly contextualize it, like, "Oh, look, unemployment is still at 3.5%," you would have also, gotten destroyed. Again, I keep saying you. I don't mean like you specifically. I just mean people in general. Like, there's a huge 20% rally, which out of US equities index is huge, right? We didn't finally start to see COVID until we had emergency cuts because they shut the economy down and we saw unemployment spike to, 15%. So again, you have to be in front of these moves, right? You have to be. Otherwise, this happens really quickly. But I think the most important thing to do is to contextualize what's actually happening behind the scenes here, right? And the way that I look at it is like our cost of capital just went down. We just had a 50 basis point cut. We're going to get another couple 25 basis point cuts this year, I would assume. And the US labor market remains resilient. I don't see economic contraction anywhere I look. Like, GDP is positive, actually came in recently over expectations. Cost of capital is going down. Um, Again, people have jobs. Inflation is trending down to the long-term target of 2%. China is stimulating, right? So it's important to not look at our economy here in the US and just be like, yeah, it only matters if the US is stimulating. Like, there's a lot of foreign money that enters our market too. So I'm viewing this right here, this little drop in the effective federal funds rate, as, hey, this is a mean reversion cut. This is a cut because we simply can. And I hate to even say soft landing because it's cringe and it's overused, and people always like to be like, "Oh, we got a soft landing, no recession." Like, these interest rate hikes will be felt. Like this right here, when we went from 0 to 5.5, these are going to work their way into the economy, but it's just, in my opinion, not here. Like, they feel more like mean reversion cuts. So I don't know. I think the best way to go about it, and like I like your approach, is rely on the technicals. And you're seeing this as a potential vulnerable spot for the S&P 500. My only thing is, I can't get bearish on it until I see like a high time frame shift, because there's always a complacency shoulder. Like even if it means there's pain, right? Like even if we did this, if you're right and we did this, right? There's always going to be that like huge complacency shoulder to short. There
Yeah.
always is. Like there's this right here. We can go back, and I guess COVID there wasn't, obviously, because that was pretty bizarre. But like there's always a break of structure and then a big complacency shoulder, and you still can catch the meat of that move. Like break of structure, there's your trend line, and then you could have shorted any of these highs. So it's like for me, I'm gonna rely on the structure, right? Like I'm not saying you're wrong, because like you seem to call a lot of things pretty damn spot on,
But
but
here's
I'm
the
just not
thing,
seeing
right?
a
I'm not
contraction.
but if you what I'm calling for is the top into the election, and what I said is best case, and we do like 2020, we do like most of the last 3 election years, what we do is as soon as November hits, boom, we're good, right? Stock market up only from there, right? I think because your charts are so nice and clean, we should go over that on your charts real quick for everyone so everyone can see. Market tops in September, October, and then bam, once November hits, it's just up only there in election years. So that's the thing. I think a lot of people are acting like I'm calling the ultimate collapse and end of the stock market when that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that every single time, pretty much, you're going to see the stock market drop in October going into the election. And the earliest we see all-time high is 50 days from now, which is late November, is the earliest to be back to all-time high. So I almost, even part of me regrets making anything that's even slightly bearish because it gets so overblown. But
Yeah.
basically what I'm saying is I believe a local top is going in October, going into the election, and 3 of the last 6 election years, it actually we had a major crashes. So basically what I'm saying, I think people are underestimating like super bullish without even considering that things could actually be worse than you think. Like things could evolve into worse than just a 4 to 8% dip going into the election. So
I
yeah, you
agree
can
with
see
you.
there, but here's the thing. Okay, so everyone who's watching now on stream, this is 2020 when Biden wins, right?
This was
And
this was
S&P.
2023. This was last
Oh, okay.
October. Yeah.
If you will go back to 2020 later,
Yeah.
you'll see October drops 9% and Bitcoin was totally fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So ideally, we do the same. But my whole point is I'm confident a top is in the market. And if it's the last 3 times, yeah, we recover within 50 to 150 days. We're back at all-time highs in the stock market, and that means Bitcoin's going, hey, ham. But like I said, I just think people are overlooking the fact that 3 out of the last 6 election years, really bad shit happened. And so, you know, we could all absolutely be wiped the fuck out. Like we could all be destroyed, you know, if things evolved into something worse than we think. And that's the thing. You don't realize it until the bad, jobs data is hitting, before all the bad information is hitting you. Then you start to realize, oh, we're fucked. But when you can possibly anticipate that well in advance, I'm just showing people, man, like usually we dip 4 to 8% going into the election. That's exactly what I think is going to happen. From there, I don't know the severity, right? And a lot of the data you look at would suggest we're going to recover easily starting in November. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Last 3 times election years, we recovered immediately starting in November. But
Well,
man, I feel like people overlook the fact, that 3 out of 6 election years have turned out badly for us. You know.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people just mindlessly DCA in and don't ever even take note to it. So I think it's a really solid observation. And just to be clear to everybody here, like I was just on the chart you guys are looking at, I'm just highlighting a prime example of, yes, Bitcoin is becoming more ingrained in legacy and TradFi, right? Now that institutions are like officially here to play. But look at, this was 2023. This was actually September and October, which is ironic because that's where we're at right now, for Bitcoin and SPX. So if crash is correct and like you get something on the S&P, like and you drop down, this was a deviation, and you bleed. SPX bled 9.2% while Bitcoin was literally ripping face up 42%. So just saying, like, someone actually tagged me on Twitter and they're like, "Hey, bro, like, what do you think about crashes, like SPX thoughts or whatever? Like, you're bullish crypto." And I'm like, we could both be right. I don't really care if the S&P 500 has a local correction, like, because I lean into the technicals, which I think we should transition into. Like, there's a lot of crypto charts that are screaming up to me right now. Um, and I think that in your best case on SPX is probably you just continue to slowly grind higher, where I think that crypto is more of a beach ball underwater, truthfully, kind of like what we saw last, Q4, which I'm highlighting right here. But Crash, do you want to talk about some crypto or should we go over some more equity stuff? I'm cool with whatever
Well
you want to
well,
do, man.
here's what I would say, right? So, in that October, S&P dropped 9%, but if it dropped 20%, obviously, you know, Bitcoin would not be going up. Like 90% sure of that, because in 2008, gold is a safe asset, and when 2008 hit, gold dropped. Same with COVID. When COVID hit, we still drop, right? So I would still any major crash is going to affect everything, including Bitcoin and gold, in my opinion, like usual. But obviously, those things are usually very quick to recover, just like pretty much everything else after a crash. That my point is, right? Everyone's sitting here and we're all saying, including myself, oh, okay, clearly Bitcoin's going to be above 150,000, right? We all think that, or at least I do. I've been screaming, oh, when Bitcoin's above 150,000, my memes are going to be at ridiculous bubble prices, right? And so that's what we all sit here. That's what we all believe. And think about it. Every single 4-year cycle in Bitcoin, we never ran into a market crash at this timing in the cycle where we all think it's about to begin. What's the one thing that could stop our 4-year cycle is, and what everyone would do is they'd be like, oh yeah, our 4-year cycle only was invalidated because the stock market crashed. That's the only reason. And it's like, I'm telling people in advance, anything that's going to fuck us is us topping in October, going into the election, and then bam, things get worse than we thought in the next month or two. As we once again set that top in October and we start grinding down into the election, I believe. And here's the thing, I could be wrong about that. I don't think I'm going to be wrong about that. It just makes sense every single time. Market sets a peak in October in the stock market and starts going down into the election. You know what I mean? Then the last
Yeah.
3 times, as soon as November hits, election hits, up only from there. But, that's what we're hoping for.
And I don't think it, by the way, you could be right. You really could be. We could have a local correction. At this phase, I don't see like a global top being in, but local correction, like send it down. I don't see why that couldn't happen, you know? I really don't. I
Let
mean,
me
it certainly could, but I also think it doesn't matter who wins the election, which some people think it does, some people think it doesn't. I think the trajectory will look different, but it doesn't really matter historically whether a Republican or a Democrat wins the election. We get pretty comparable returns both ways, which I think a lot of people probably wouldn't agree with. Just be like, I think a lot of people think like, oh, Trump wins like straight up, Kamala wins straight down. I don't really agree with that. That's not what the data suggests to me. I don't know how you feel about it, but
Nah, I mean, that's thing is that doesn't really change the value of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's valued at what it is right now, given that both have, well, almost equal chance to win right now. So Bitcoin is perfectly, like, if Trump was 100% chance to win, then Bitcoin would already be higher right now. It'd probably be at like 80,000. But it's 50-50, and that's why Bitcoin's priced at, where it is, around 61, 62 last I checked. So it's like these things are perfectly priced given all the information, you know. I don't know,
mhm,
hard to explain, but it's like I people are already positioned for a Trump win and people are already positioned for a Kamala win. Therefore, you know, the effect of one of them winning, like you said, it already ties into the value of the asset. I don't know. It's kind of weird to explain. But if that doesn't make sense, like
it does, yeah.
if you buy a if you buy a house in Miami, and maybe this is wrong, but is there a chance of like a tsunami in Miami if you have a house on the beach? I don't know. But that's do people consider their house going underwater when they buy it close to the beach? Yes, and that's priced in. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Sorry,
all
my
priced in mostly.
yeah, my trading
Like,
view is
that's why
just
it's
like glitching on me right now. Yeah, actually,
well, here's
let
the
me
thing,
just
Max, about the top for the S&P right now, which I believe it's at the very least a local top. Now, what happens, right, if later on you guys are like, "Oh no, Japan is blowing up. We're starting to see the effects of the interest rates, and now, oh my god, the market's crashing because look at this data." Or
yeah,
later on, it's like World War III began, and everyone's like, well, usually war is actually bullish for price, right? We'd have to go back and do our own case study there. But what if the market starts crashing and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, World War III started." And see, the thing is, what if there's someone already higher up in the world who's already planned these things to happen and it's in the charts, in the patterns already, but you won't realize it and you'll start to blame that happening later for why the market's crashing. And then people will be like, "Oh, well, it's only crashing because of Japan is blowing up, or it's only crashing because of World War III." And so that's the thing. I just play based off the technicals, the charts, and not off of future data, but just based off the patterns and stuff right now. And so, this is it's such a 50-50 time, because you can literally look at a pattern right now in the stock market and you can be like, well, look at 2020, right?
mhm.
In 2020, we go up only. And that's the thing. I don't know what happens 50 plus days out here. I just am confident in the next 50 days, basically, that this top is in October for the stock market, and we go down into the election. What I don't know is what happens after the election, because typically the last 3 times we just go up only after the election. But I'm not 100% sold that it's guaranteed we just go up only in November after the election. So that's the main thing. I don't know the length of this top. Like I said in my video, to anyone who watched it, I said,
Yeah,
hey, best case, this is our top in the S&P for the next 50 to 150 days, and we're already recovering by late November, December, or January. We're already back to a new all-time high in the S&P, and we're fucking going.
yeah.
But you cannot discount that 3 of the 6 of the last election years, we had horrible crashes, and you may not see the reasons now. No one saw COVID coming before it did, right? And it hit the market. No one saw 2008 coming, or a few did, and it hit. So you're never going to see what it is that crashes the market before it happens, usually, anyways. So I'm
What
just
do you
going
think
based
it
off
would
of
what do you think it would be, right? Because of course I know you're thorough. So it's like you're looking at the technicals and you spotted a pattern. What do you think could act as that headwind to propel that fractal into actually manifesting? You
But that's the
you think
thing.
it
I always say, I don't know all the factors going on in the world. I don't know. Some major player could blow up in Japan, and I don't even know who the fuck they are right now, right? And then that causes a domino effect. So I don't know, and I really don't care, right? I just play off the patterns, and I know that, okay, this is the pattern we have, which gives me extreme confidence that we're going to dip going into the election for the stock market. And from there, based off the last 3 times, we just recovered up only in November. But pray to God that no domino, effect hits, something that you don't know right now, that you don't anticipate hits, because that's happened 3 of the 6 election years. Is it so crazy to think, like, imagine Trump won? And I saw Alex Becker say this. He was like, imagine the Democrats like rage quit and they try to make Trump look bad as soon as he wins. You know what I mean? And tank the stock market so it looks like, oh, the economy's crashing because of Trump. You know what I mean? You
yeah.
can't predict that. You don't know who's in charge, who's pulling strings in this world. And then guess what? If that happens, who goes belly up? All of a sudden now someone in Japan's going belly up. Someone over there's going belly up. And you couldn't have seen all that shit coming by looking at data. You'd only see that based off of a pattern, based off of a coordinated set of moves from some very powerful people that could have set that all up for Trump to look shit if he does win. You know what I mean? So my
Mhm.
whole thing is, I think it's very discounted. The objective fact is 3 of the last 6 election years, we had horrible market crashes. And while everyone is sitting here and we're so set and confident that we're about to run to 100K plus, what's the one thing that could stop that? Is a market crash, right? And that would be independent of Bitcoin, but mostly because of the stock market, right? And so I just think it's heavily discounted. the chance of actually things that we can't really anticipate actually being here in an election year, because that's what's happened so many times, or at least 3 of the last 6 times, you know? So, yeah.
I agree
And then
with
guess
you.
what?
Wh-
Everyone would just be like, "Oh, it's only because of the war. Oh, it's only because, the Democrats this. Oh, it's because of this, because of that." Bro, y'all say that after, you know what I mean? The thing is the pattern could potentially show us that before all these things happen. And also,
Mhm.
based on this pattern we've seen though, okay, basically 3 of the 6 election years we just go up only in November. But 3 of those election years we've had horrible crashes too, you know? So,
So I agree with you to be clear about leaning into the technicals, but I'd like to, if you're cool with it, talk about some of the technicals in crypto that I would say kind of contrast a little bit or disagree with some of the potentially bearish technicals for S&P, because obviously the S&P 500 has been going straight up. Like, I mean, look at, we can just put this down below for a brief second. Like the S&P 500 has been going, I mean, vertical, and Bitcoin has been doing the opposite, right? So like this clear
exactly. A lot of
divergence.
people think that they have to move together. They're like, haha, you idiot. So if you're bearish on stocks, that means you think crypto must go down. It's like, no, you look at the reactions in last election years, the stock market drops in October and Bitcoin has went up, you know? So, but where this affects Bitcoin badly is if, once again, this local top isn't just a local top, if it ends up turning into a big top, you know? And that's the thing. I just believe right now it's a local top, but I'm not like, I know there's a real chance that this local top could be a much bigger top than everyone thinks. And first off, no one even thinks it's a top right now in the stock market at all. I'm like the only one in the fucking world right now saying, "Hey, hey, hey, watch out." I think there's some kind of top here, at the very least, a local top, which let's pray it's only a local top, because I think people severely discount that something way worse could happen that you can't even anticipate right now from this top, you know? But God willing, we just go up only in November after this.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I hope we go up. But I mean, it is important to note, like one thing I will absolutely like pay respects to in your analysis here is that if we look at like the 2019 example, right? Bitcoin topped in June of 2019. By the way, guys, I am not of the opinion that this is where we're at contextually. Like I think this kind of already played out. But at this same time, stocks were making higher highs, Bitcoin was making lows, and then we had like, then the black swan presented itself, which was COVID. So I mean, I assume that's kind of what you're referring to, Crash, is like we're seeing a divergence between like risk assets being Bitcoin and legacy being the S&P 500. SPX is in a vulnerable spot with Bitcoin printing, downtrends for 6 or 7 months. But looking here's what I wanted to talk about too is like if we're going to talk about technicals, right? If we're going to talk about leaning into the technicals and then kind of letting the news present itself and act as a catalyst, by the way, I agree with that idea that like show me the chart and I'll tell you the news, right? This is our 2024 value area right here. So basically 70% of all of the transacting for the entire year of 2024. So January through now, the very beginning of October, has happened within this green box right here. So something that I think is important to recognize is, let me actually put this up. I love this indicator here. So I'll move it up and we'll make it look a little bit different here, just because I want to talk about how I think that bears have gotten greedy. Like they had 7 months to, really mess with us, and they just couldn't get it done, in my view. And I'm going to explain why. And maybe Crash, you would agree or disagree. We can talk about that. But um, what this is right here, this is speaking of volume. I know you were talking about the significance of volume. And what this indicator is showing is relative volume. Oh, why does it keep moving back down? Sorry. Hang on a second, guys. Bear with me. No pun intended. All right. So what this is doing right here is this is showing you relative volume. So it's basically when you have volume that is way outside of your kind of mean, okay? And these arrows are a little bit, they need to be modified a little bit here. But I'm pointing to these huge sell bars right here, which happen to be right at our 2024 value area low. So the most important level on the chart. So when I look at this as well, let me see. I think I can add, oops, crap. Okay, I can't do it right here. But basically what this is showing is that you had at these three events right here. So every week, every month of Q3, which is historically a really bearish time for risk assets. So July, August, and September. So first week of July, first week of August, first week of September. What you had was statistical outlier sell volume coming into the most important level on the chart. So the way that I interpret this as a high time frame swing trader is bears basically had 90 days of attempted breakdowns to start every single month of Q3, and they basically got absorbed at the most important level on the chart, which is our 2024 value area low. They got absorbed. Like all of this huge sell pressure. And again, this is not subjective, like it's right here. Huge capitulatory sell volumes, huge liquidations, and they got absorbed, right? So when I look at this, I go, bears got greedy. They had their opportunity to sell this thing down 3 times. And right now, this is the beach ball underwater. This is like we tried to force a breakdown or we got stopped out of our positions at these lows. And now it's time to run it back, right? Like they had their chance for, they had 3 huge chances and they couldn't get it done, right? So this from a technical perspective, I look at this and I'm like, okay, why would we go back down here? Black swan aside, right? I will give you that. I will always give you the black swan out. And again, I keep saying you. I don't mean like you, but it's like I will give everybody the black swan out. It's like, of course, you can't really predict a black swan. You could look at the technicals and be like something looks weird and then you find out about it later, but at this point, when you have 90 days of huge seller, exhaustion and absorption at these lows heading into a historically bullish quarter, I have no choice but to be bullish, especially when we bring into something, the consideration of this chart. So I spent some time making this, and I know you've probably seen this. We've
Yeah,
talked
I love
about
it.
this. But what this is right here is basically all of the 3 previous Bitcoin cycles overlaid on top of each other from bear market bottom through cycle top. And I have one of these for altcoins as well. So I'd love to look at that after. But what you have here is the blue cycle, 2016, 2017 cycle. Purple cycle was last cycle when we topped at 69K. And the current one is in green. I've also marked out the Bitcoin halvings on each of the 3 fractals, plus the US presidential elections. The upcoming one is with this vertical red line. Okay. So I find it absolutely incredible that we always just kind of mean revert and come back to where we should be, right? Like look at over here in last cycle. We moved up way too quick. This was June of 2019. And then we kind of mean revert. And then we overcorrect to the downside because of COVID. And then we mean revert, right? So it's like you just can't fight your mean, right? And they always kind of find each other. And then, for example, we spiked early up in March right here, probably because the Bitcoin ETFs got ahead of the previous 2 cycles, which clearly were synced up right over here going into the halving. And then we spent the last 7 months perfectly syncing back up with our previous 2 cycles. Like look at where we're at right here in comparison to the previous 2 cycles. It's almost spooky. It's almost spooky where we come back perfectly leading, right between the Bitcoin halvings, which are the orange dots, and the US elections, which are these red dots in the vertical line. Like we are perfectly in this little like compression here, this little shoot, like such a tight little cluster, all 3 cycles. Like, what are the odds that they do this all 3 cycles? And then look at the previous 2 cycles when things have started to heat up. You buy between the halving and the election if you're a Bitcoin investor. Altcoins can, kind of navigate however they want. And then you typically rally, through the election. You get your first top. Bitcoin's first top was, right over here, 64K. And then, it drops. So like roughly from your bear market bottom, Bitcoin will get its first top, 866 days from there. So that would take us maybe out into March, end of Q1. So kind of front running sell in May, go away. And then you buy the summer dip and you come back for one more run it up. And I also have Bitcoin Vegas marked here because like we joke about this all the time. There is like nothing more bearish cyclically than a bunch of crypto nerds spending money on strippers and tables in Vegas. So that's going to be a top, bro. That's going to be a local top for sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I don't know what you think
Yeah,
about
I mean,
this chart crash, but like I look at this and I'm like, I I
yeah,
I
it's
just
dope.
showed you like
It's
there's
dope.
statistical
But
outlier sell volume every single month in Q3 that got absorbed.
okay, but here's what I'll say about saying, okay, 3 times we dropped, bears couldn't get it done. Well, same thing you can say at the top when we tried to go higher than 73K. You had all the most bullish news, Bitcoin ETF, ETH ETF, BlackRock, crack rock, this rock, and you still couldn't go higher. So, the same thing can be said to the upside, which of course, here's the thing. Here's what keeps me grounded more than anything is the fundamental belief that Bitcoin is going to be 150,000 plus dollars and that the dollar over time will lose value, which makes all these assets go up in price. But it doesn't stop us from short-term corrections in the stock market, for example. And like I said, if we get a 4 to 8% drop in the stock market, well, based on 2020, based on 2016, it had no effect on Bitcoin. So basically the way I said it in my video and what I'm looking for is if Bitcoin doesn't react negatively to a stock market local top at the very least here, then we're on track to do what we've always done. But if we actually see Bitcoin reacting negatively to what I believe is a local top at the very least in the stock market, that's a bad sign, dude. Because if you are truly in that bull run that we think we're in, Bitcoin should be bullish while the stock market should be, have a top here. You know what I mean? And so for now, obviously, I know last year as well, we dipped at the beginning of October. But what I want to see now for all of us is that Bitcoin will be bullish even if the stock market will be red going into election. If that happens, then I think we're looking super good. But you can't deny, I feel like it's a very bad sign if Bitcoin would be bearish with stocks going into election. I think that's a bad sign.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like if stocks pull back, um, and Bitcoin follows, that's, obviously not going to be good.
Yeah,
But
because the last 2 times Bitcoin was completely unaffected by stock market drop going into the election, which is what? It's like you're front running the bull run. It's like you're front running. Okay, it's like sell your solar stocks, sell your oil stocks because we don't know who's going to win the election. But let's load up on Bitcoin instead. It's kind of what it feels like happened the last 2 times. But if it's like, hey, we're going to election, we're uncertain, sell Bitcoin just like the stock market, which is not what happened the last 2 times, that's a bad sign, To me, that shows like more fear and of holding Bitcoin, just like those solar stocks, just like oil stock going into election or whatever stocks that someone may be overly positioned in.
yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know what you think about ETH here, but I have some thoughts I'd like to share, and I actually
Please
find it
do.
I find it kind of like spooky bullish, honestly. But it kind of does the same thing like every cycle, right? Like you have your blow off top, and then you have a complacency shoulder, and then you have a bear market reaccumulation, and then you kind of do the same thing. So, like for example, this was last cycle for ETH. Like here's your top way up here, complacency shoulder, then you just nuke into a bear market. Here's your top last cycle, or this was 2 cycles ago. This one's last cycle. Complacency shoulder, and then you just nuke into a bear market, right? So there's this idea of like a region in which you just generally can't lose, otherwise you're cooked, right? And that would be the scenario that you're talking about of if SPX pulls back and it drags crypto down with it, we might be cooked, right? And I'm acutely aware of like what that scenario would look like. It would be horrible, right? My entire net worth is in shit coins. So um here's your bear market reaccumulation range of last cycle. Okay, so this was ETH over here in 2019 after the complacency shoulder and the drop. Okay, and here's the current cycle right here, and then we're going to zoom in and take a look at it. This is your bear market reaccumulation range of this cycle. So you reaccumulate for like a year and a half, 2 years, and then you break out of it, and then you retest, and then you get a bull market, right? I know, sounds easy, right? It's really not easy, but we're going to talk about like some of the similarities too. So like we've established these are the regions you can't lose. You couldn't have re-entered. You can't do this. You couldn't have come back down here, reaccepted back into this range, this is a deviation because then you're back in the range. You're completely fried. Just like right now, you can't come back down in here. I see a lot of people calling for like $1,200 ETH. You can't re-enter a 600-day reaccumulation. Otherwise, you're cooked. Like you're just
I
gonna
don't
do
I
the
don't agree with that though, you know? I don't. I think you can come back into a range and then break back up and out of the range again if needed. And obviously that's I'm hoping to avoid that. And ideally, see, this is what happens. If the stock market tops here at 5,800, but crypto doesn't give a fuck, right? And it just kind of stays here or is hopefully like the last two times is bullish here, we're looking super good. But like I said, yeah, if the stock market actually drags ETH down, with it, um, I can see it. And by the way, man, I think it's more likely that the stock market would drag Ethereum and altcoins down with it, but not necessarily Bitcoin as much, you know? So I know usually Bitcoin and ETH go together, but the ETH has been underperforming Bitcoin heavily. So it's something like where we could see Bitcoin still around 55 to 65K, but ETH kind of just keeps losing dominance back down to like 1800. For example, if the stock market starts pulling everything down like a heavy weight with it, um, that's something I think is really possible too. But I was going to show you something. Let me go back to my chart because I switched over to yours. But I just want to say that I disagree. I don't think there's anything actually bearish about breaking back into a range. Personally, I don't
Oh,
think
I
so.
think I think we'd be cooked for a while. Black Swan aside, like I think if you lose this level and you're back into your bear market range, it's going to be a lot of pain for a long time, right? Like you generally need to hold this level, and I mean, I
I
don't
mean,
really.
imagine how fucked all us regular people would be potentially on that. Like, who does that open the opportunity to buy in with size? Who actually has size? Not us. It's like BlackRock and all these institutions that would what? As every one of us is all like liquidated or crying and dead, they're the ones buying it all cheap at that point. So I
I just
don't
want
think
to show you
it's
one more thing of like, let's just say it's a bullish scenario from here, right? This is your bear market. Like, in my view, gotta hold it level. You disagree, but I think it's a gotta hold it level. So, we'll agree to disagree. That's
I
fine.
don't think you got to hold anything, man. I think it's so bullish when you liquidate a ton of people to the downside and you get like, not the opposite of a God candle, right? But to the downside, like those, I think are so bullish. So, you know, I think a nuke lower again would just knock out so many people out of the market that it's actually a good thing, personally.
I mean, how low do you think we would go here? Like, roughly.
Well, so in this situation where stock market is able to negatively impact crypto prices, then I think something down a flush to like 1,800 to 2,100 is great. You
But
know, like
that's not re-entering the range. I mean, that's
no, it's piercing it. That's so bullish. Like that, in my opinion, right now, everyone's screaming October. So what? Market goes down, and everyone is so cocky about that price needs to go up now, October, now. Like it has to go now. And so whenever you're over leveraged, you're overly confident, and you're all in on one thing happening, that's a lot of times when you get killed. So to me, I think a lot of people, um, you know, I just think it's a perfect setup to kill a lot of people, man. And it's uncomfortable to hear possibly for some people, but that's usually what the market likes to do. And you know,
I would argue that the market kind of did that the past 6 months. Everybody was like
it's
YOLO
got a lot of
long.
people out,
We
but
topped in March, bro. It's October. It's like how many more months of disaster? I mean, look at Bitcoin's still at, low 60s, but I mean most altcoins, I mean the strong ones are fine, right? But a lot of altcoins
oh,
got
it's
destroyed and
destroyed.
didn't come back.
Yeah, even though Bitcoin's almost at the all-time high still, more people have lost money. than made money by far. Most people are like really looking bad, even though we're right at the all-time high almost on Bitcoin, you know? So yeah, no doubt a lot of people have gotten wrecked. But I just feel that right now there's still a lot of cockiness that can get wiped out with another strong move lower. And that's what personally, here's the thing, I'm not even I'm not counting on that. I don't even want to see that happen. I want the market to go up for my net worth, for yours. But, you know, obviously the last two presidential elections, Bitcoin was bullish in October despite a red stock market. That's what I want to see. We're not seeing that yet, so we'll see. Um,
I
but
find
yeah,
I find this
I mean
pretty
that's the thing.
interesting. I find this interesting. I don't know, it doesn't sound like this is what you're expecting base case, but, this was your
Yeah,
bear market range high, and we just kinda kept carving out these choppy, really, like, awful higher lows within a range,
oh,
and
I
we're doing
hate those.
something kinda similar right now, I will say, you know? And
Yeah,
here's what I'll leave it at, okay? I'm willing to entertain anything. Like, if you think we're gonna do this, I know that you know how to trade, like, it should be given, that scenario should be given respect. It's not a You're not prophesizing it, you're entertaining it, right? You're being a trader about it. If we
okay,
flip this
no, the thing is, I just think that is so bullish if we go and take out those lows one more time and wipe out that cockiness out of so many people. I think that is the best thing for this market right now, actually. And then up only from there. But,
if we get up
you
here,
know,
though, if we're up in here, bears are gonna die. Bears are gonna lose everything. If you break out of this local range that we've been in for 2 months, in my view, they
yeah,
gotta
but
hold it level.
God willing, we're there soon, man, but
Yeah.
that's the thing is for now, so far this month, we've been moving down with the stock market, and we better pray that this changes like now-ish, because if the stock market is topped going into election, once again, it makes sense. You're at all-time highs. There's election uncertainty. Who's going to win? And that affects the price of a lot of stocks and sectors. It makes sense you would sell at all-time high going into election with all that uncertainty, right? So if the stock market does impact crypto, then I think you see Ethereum come down, undercut those lows again, right? And that would be between 1800 and 2100, and then hopefully from there up only, you know. So ultimately, though, what's happened the last two elections is crypto was despite a red October for stocks. So hopefully that kicks in any second now. But
So here's what I want to show you is like I don't think you're gonna get that low. I feel like if you did go lower, you would end up doing something like this, which is actually funny enough. This was
yeah,
October.
yeah,
This was,
that's what would be great.
but that's not. I mean, that's not even that. Like here, let's draw this here.
Yeah, but the thing
So
is, people on leverage who have their stop losses under the lows get badly wiped out. And I would say more people are long now than they were there. I remember there, man, everyone and their mothers thought we were going back down to 20K Bitcoin, 18K Bitcoin, whereas now everyone thinks we're going to 100K. So I think the pain is a lot greater if we undercut this low. You liquidate a lot of people before up only.
I mean, what's your sample size on that? Like, I don't follow a ton of people, but I'm like, crypto Twitter's dead, man. Like, it's not like there's a, you know,
Dude, my whole feed is so bullish, it's insane. So, I mean, of course, and I'm part of the problem. It's like, you said it yourself. You're all in on shitcoins. So am I. And, it just is right. First off, there's a lot of similarities from where we are today and the dot-com bubble, if you think about it,
bro,
where
no, there's
instead of
not.
these
Do you know what the
yes,
average? You know what the
meme coins
average?
is the
You know?
dot-com
You know
bubble
what?
all over again.
No, it's not. Do you know what the average PE ratio of a Nasdaq company was during the dot com
Okay,
bubble?
what's the PE ratio of a meme coin, bro? Oh,
So I see what you're saying, but what's the market cap of like the altcoin indexes, right? Like, what's if you add them all together, right? They're not. They're like a nothing. They're not even a company. Like it's not comparable. If crypto bubbled to a $20 trillion valuation or something, and I actually agree with you. Like we're on the verge of the crypto.com bubble, right? Crazy speculation. Most of them die and do nothing, and then a handful go on to be Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google. But the average earnings multiple of a NASDAQ company during the .com bubble was like 70 or 80 cumulatively, like trading at ridiculous valuations, 3x what they're doing right now. So like there is, in my view, no overlap from a valuations perspective between how people are valuing the current state of our economy, speculatively, even including AI companies, all that kind of stuff, anywhere near what we saw with the .com bubble. Like the math just doesn't. I don't see that, bro. I don't see that. And
I
like,
mean,
I get the comparison of like crypto, like what's the real intrinsic value? Like, how do you value these shit coins? I mean, most of them are worthless, right? Like they all promise that they're going to like revolutionize everything and then they're just ghost chains, right? But I think that that's probably like 3 or 4 years too early. Like you're going to see a speculative frenzy on blockchain and AI, or blockchain and AI together. But like right now, bro, what's the market cap of others? Like others is 214 billion. Dude, that's like a tenth of the market cap of like one mega cap tech company. I just can't I
yeah,
can't
but
get
back in
behind that.
2000 is very different. See, we don't know what was the combined total market cap of all those .com bubble stocks. I don't know what it was, but I think it's very similar. Meme coins and crypto to the .com bubble is very similar. But okay, well, let's put all that subjective takes aside.
Okay.
I am hoping that all of our bullish charts and all of our bullish stuff is there. And I have believed 100,000% in all of them until now. My concern is this is what people need to realize. People are like, don't get bearish, Crash. I'm not bearish on crypto, and I'm not bearish on it because it's down. That's a G. Okay. I am bearish because the stock market has been pumping to all-time high after all-time high after all-time high going into an election, which historically the tendency is you top in October going into the election for the stock market. So that is what makes me bearish, not necessarily on crypto, but on stocks, because a 4 to 8% slide in the stock market shouldn't affect us badly here in crypto. But it's if that top in the stock market evolves into something much worse, then the bull run that we hope for and all expect, that would be fucked if the stock market ultimate top tier. That's the thing. I believe it's at the least a local top, but you never know if a local top turns into an ultimate top. And that's what I'm telling people is nobody in the world thinks it's even possible that the stock market could ultimate top. I don't put the probability as mega high. I can't have confidence with certainty that it's a ultimate top. What I lean towards is a local top of it takes us 50 to 150 days to get back to the all-time high. I mean, we're right at the all-time high right now, dude, in the stock market.
I know, but like price discovery innately is not a bearish thing, right? I would say if you start losing these levels, then yeah. But here's what I know you already did this, but like let's mark out some dates of the U.S. presidential elections, like right here on the S&P 500 chart. Like let's go back to the 80s. Okay, so November of 84 would have been. I mean, we're going way back, right? I don't know how far back you went, but
Okay.
like November of 84 was right here. All right, so we're just gonna mark these all out with lines right here. And then November of 88, so it would have been right, where are you? August, September, October, November, right here. I just wanna do this, right? I haven't actually
Okay,
done
okay.
this with
I've only went back on the last 24 years, but if you want to go back last 40, 50 years, we can do that too.
November of, it'd be November of 92. So this is
But you know,
91. What's
80s
up?
and 90s was what up only, right? So
And we
so
were
if we're
coming
gonna
out
do
of
the
a high
80s,
inflationary period, which was the 70s, like we just came out of. Like, let me
yeah, but
just throw
if
this
we're
back
gonna
up.
do the 80s and
Look at
90s,
that.
then we should be doing the 70s and 60s and the 50s and the 40s too, though, you know?
Yeah, I just don't wanna spend 3 hours
Yeah,
looking this up, but
so
yeah, no, I agree with you.
because that
I
was an
agree.
up-only market, which similar to now too.
1990, so November of '96 would be our next one, so, uh, November of '96 would be right here, and then, November of 2000 would be this one was fucked, right? Obviously. .com crash. November of 2004, right here, and then November of 2008, this one was cooked as well. Oh, wait, that's 2007, sorry. November of 2008 was right here, so kinda close to the bottom there, that's interesting. Um, okay, November of 2012,
Yeah,
right
it's
there
usually up.
roughly.
But
November
here's the
of
thing,
2016.
market after November, not like most times is bullish besides 2008, 2000 from what I've looked at, you know? I haven't
Yeah.
went back 40, 60, 80 years, but my main point in the stock market is that September and October, you set a local top usually in the market, and then November is up only after then. You know what I mean? That's our base case, right? Up only once election comes.
Yeah, so we basically have 30 days because the election's November 5th, I believe, November 5th, so I don't know, I mean, let's look if there's any seasonal corrections here, like, let's literally zoom way the hell in here and go back, like, let me see what the months leading into it were, right? So this one, kinda just, like, flat, I guess, choppy, dip before, but that was in the summer.
Yeah.
88, we had a big drop. This was in the November actually, so a year before. So this was just kinda chop into it, right?
No,
Um,
look at the observation I'm trying to make, right? Is before the line, you're dumping into the
yeah,
election, right?
okay.
See?
So an
So
88 correction into it, held held
and
the
then up
lows,
only after the election.
then up only. Let's see here. Alright, right here, kinda dipped and
Nothing.
then recovered into it, kind of neutral, just say whatever, but up after. 96, little correction, but we'll say this one kinda went up into it. Um, this one was cooked, right? Dipped into it, popped into it, dipped right into it, recession, right? But this was the dot-com bubble over here. And see, this is actually makes more sense to me. This is what I was talking about in the very beginning, where I was like, you had this high time frame break of trend. So, like, I feel more comfortable shorting this rather than where you're saying you're bearish is, like, in my view, even if you're right, bro, like, you're bearish up here, like, we're right
Bro,
here right now.
no glory has ever come from shorting a breakdown. Glory comes from the top, man, you
Bro,
know?
this is glory in my view, bro. I would take this all day long, dude. Look at this thing. That's glory. Look at it. We nuked. That's glory. I mean, I
I
wouldn't have
don't
the
I don't I don't get bearish when things break down. I get bearish when things are pumping and going up. That's my main principle. That's how I shorted the top of Bitcoin at 69K. That's how I was bearish on the S&P close to the top. Like I don't get bearish on the way down, bro. I get bearish when things are pumping.
That's fair. Sell into
And that's the
strength,
thing.
not weakness.
I don't get bearish on crypto when it's down here. I only fear for us all because the stock market looks like absolutely horrendous to me. See, that's the go zoom out and look at the stock market and people be like, "Oh my gosh, so bullish and beautiful." And I'm terrified of the stock market.
I
No,
mean,
no,
I
go
I get
back.
it.
No, go back to like where we are now, right? Like the last 4 or 5 years. Like, oh
Well,
my,
let's
see,
work our
you
way
asked the
through. We're
typical
almost there. We're almost there. Let's finish this and then
okay.
we'll get to where we're at. So,
You ask a typical person though, they're like equities are so bullish. And that's when I'm scared, man. It's just up only, up only, up only. And
Crash,
no
I
one
don't
thinks that
think
the
you comprehend how fucking manipulated the stock market is, bro. Like,
yeah,
this
but
thing is the biggest Ponzi ever. That's why, like, it's so hard to make a living being an equity
but
bull.
the last 20 years,
Or equity bear, sorry.
every single election year, the last 20 years, stock market tops in October, September going into the election. That's what I'm off of. It's a local top, I believe.
All right, so 2004, little drop into it. This was October, moved up into it, whatever. This one, I mean, I don't know, we were in the bottom of our great financial
Look,
crisis.
September and October, you're dumping off into that election, man. That is
Yeah. I mean, this was just this was brutal
right?
though, and that's yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have
No,
wanted to
no,
sell anywhere down here, but yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying.
no,
Moving
but
to
I'm looking at the
2012.
months of September, October. The last 20 years, it's bullish going into the election. I mean, I'm sorry, bearish going into election for the stock market. Now,
This is a
everyone always says, yeah.
this is a great example. This is, I think, what you're looking for, right? Is like
No,
that.
2000, 2008, 2000, those
But
were
this is
great prime
perfect, right?
ministers.
This is a big
Yes.
correction starting in September, bottoming out November after the election, and then it goes up, right?
Yeah. But now wait till like okay, measure how many days from the top there to get back to the all-time high. That's what I'm saying. 50 to 150 days from our high here till we're back at all-time high, which actually we're almost at the all-time high right now, but like this is where I'm calling it.
So
We're
it's
literally right at the
125
all-time
days.
high. Yeah. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying is okay, if we local top at the very least in the stock market, it takes us 50 to 150 days to get back to these highs later. But that's if we recover in 50 to 150 days, you know?
Here's
I mean, that's like the
2016.
best case I
What was Bitcoin doing over here in 2016?
was going up, I'm pretty
Ram
sure.
ramping.
Yeah,
Not
which is
quite
not
price
what it's doing right
discovery
now.
yet.
That's what we're hoping Bitcoin will start doing any second now, you know?
So you get that equities drop in October through November, and then they just ramp it after the election. All right. Yeah, I mean, okay. Or I'll save these. I might look at these later. But yeah, I just wanted to do that. Like I hadn't put in the time like you had on it, Um US elections. All right, what else should we look at? Anything?
If you wanna look at altcoins, man, I mean, like, if you look at a chart like Brett, like, this is the thing that is obviously like, altcoins look so bullish overall, you know? Brett was looking even more bullish whenever it was actually going on that run right there to, like, 1,000,000,000. You know, it's holding above the all-time highs now. That was at, like, what, 900 mil over there. Um, you know, and this is what I said in my video. So I was like, "So conclusion, am I selling any of my coins?" And I said, "No, because even if we crash, you know, yeah, my net worth will nuke a good bit, but my life won't be changed if we go lower, but it will be changed if we go higher, right? And the base case is that we go up only starting in November, right? You know how many times I've shared your chart around showing how we go up only in November usually? Like
Mhm.
I've shared that out on like 10 Twitter spaces now, and every single time I text people, I'm like, look at this. Up only in November. So that's the base case, you know. That's what I hope for. And that's why I say local top in the stock market is what I believe, and just pray that it's only a local top. Because if there's something that would stop our bull run that we all are counting on here, it's an ultimate top being in the stock market here, you know? So I said on my Twitter, I said, I want to give myself two chances to call the top in the stock market. One will be here. I believe it's at the very least a local top, you know? Because I think when nobody thinks it's possible, right? Once again, I'm counting on a local top at the very least, but I think this is one of those prime times where you have a chance to get an absolute top in the stock market. It's happened, you know, you've had major crashes 3 of the last 6 election years. This one has got so much at stake. Like I said, even if Trump wins, you can see them trying to make him look shit and try to crash the market or do something against him to make him look bad. You know, if Kamala wins, you know, that's supposed to be bearish for the market, which I don't believe that either, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think with either presidential candidate, the market can crash. Um, with either presidential candidate, the market can pump. My thing is just looking at the patterns, 3 of the last 6 election years, we've had huge crashes, and I think people underestimate that it can happen, and it would happen independent of crypto. If a crash happens independent of crypto from this 5,800 point in the S&P, say goodbye to our bull run for now, and that's all. It's not based off of crypto that I'm making this observation. It's purely based on the stock market that I think people should be concerned, possibly. You know, I'm concerned for myself, like, and it has nothing to do with the crypto charts for me. It's purely based off of the stock market. I
Yeah.
look at it and I say, man, nobody thinks that we could in the stock market. Absolutely nobody. And that's when you do top in the market, and it doesn't mean it's going to be now, right? That's why I said, like, I said in my tweet, I want to give myself 2 chances with the stock market top. I'm going to give myself one here because I'm very aware this can so easily not be an ultimate top in the stock market. Our base case is we go up only in November. That's what happens after every election almost. Almost. But the few times that's not been the case, we've had horrific crashes after the election, to be honest. So,
I just can't look at these charts and not be bullish here. I'm not disregarding the scenario in which stocks pull back and crypto falls with it. Like it has to be entertained. Like I'm not going to dismiss it at all. But I mean, looking at Brett here, right? Like it's a leverage bet on ETH, like you've talked about, we've talked about. Like look at what happens here. Like from this bottom right here, ETH marks up 40%. And that triggers a huge rotation into ETH beta, right? Same low right here, but Brett goes up 500%, you know? So it's like and I don't have to tell you this, you own a ton of Brett, right? But it's like if ETH breaks up out of this range, like
yeah,
not
I'm going to
only is
be rich.
everything going to fly, but like you're going to see you're not going to see ETH go up 40%, you're going to see it go up like 150, 200%. You're probably going to pressure the all-time highs at least. And then
Bro,
you're going
I'm
to see
gonna be rich. I'm gonna be rich if we go up. Believe me, I want to go up.
No, I know.
I
I'm just
fear,
I'm just showing the
I
data, right?
fear for us all, though, with the way the stock market is. I think it's just severely not like people don't even think it's possible. And it's like, to me, I think once again, at minimum, local top. But man, I see a real case where a local top could evolve into something much worse as we start actually making our way lower in a stock market into the election. And then, like I said, Kamala could win and we could go further lower. Trump could win and we can go further lower. These presidential candidates can set off a domino in either direction of who wins. You know what I mean? Like, you can, once again, you can see them trying to make Trump look terrible
Yeah,
after
but
he
we did
wins.
just go over like the past 10 elections. Like even if you do drop locally, typically, especially when you get a new president in office, you get a year of like really bullish conditions, right? There's a lot of things that they can do to further sort of engineer the Ponzi to go up. And they typically utilize those tools at their disposal. Even if you drop
Yeah,
in September, October, which I'm open
yeah. But
to.
what's our base case though? That is that we go up only after November. But if you don't get your base case, because it seems that absolutely nobody in this world believes anything besides that we must go up, which is, if you followed me for the last year, all I've said is when Bitcoin's above 150K, fucking Brett and all my shit's gonna be 20x plus higher minimum. Right? We all count on one thing, and what if the one thing we count on doesn't come true at the time we need it or want it to come true? Are you ready for that? Because if there was something that's going to mess us all up, is it's being overly dependent on one thing, which is that everything must go right and must go up for us at this time. And little did you realize that the stock market could be setting an ultimate top and messing up your entire plan to get rich right now. And that's what I'm just pointing out. Our base case is we go up only in November. But if our base case doesn't come true, what I could see fucking us completely, all of us losing like 80% of our net worths, is if the stock market goes from local top to ultimate top, bro.
I don't know what that catalyst would be because I watched
You
the
don't need
data
to know the
pretty
catalyst. You didn't
closely.
know COVID before COVID hit. You didn't know that the housing bubble was going to burst like that until it burst. And you didn't know that the dot-com bubble, well, we were probably too young at that time. I know I was, to be sitting there being like, oh my God, these dot-com stocks are overvalued. I must be bearish and they're going to collapse. Like, I was too young. I was fucking, yeah. So you
I
don't
mean,
need to
I'm
know
with
the
you.
catalyst, bro. Just know
I
that
just
it could be there.
it
And
could
so,
always be there. It could always
what I
be there,
lean
but it's like
to, what I lean to,
I look at the technicals too, and I'm like, we haven't broken structure yet. And I know that like that's
here's
being late to the game, but I'm like, we have good data and we haven't broken structure.
bro. I'm just gonna say this: screw good data. All right, I was gonna say F good data, but I'm actually being so level-headed today. Screw good data. I don't give a crap about good data because good data always comes at the top, man. So you know, good data, bad data. I don't care about the data.
No. All right. No data then. No data. But even if
But
we
okay,
ignore the
okay.
data,
Here's
you
what I say.
agree
Here's what
we
I say.
haven't broken
I
structure yet.
shift. This is my shift too, though. Because if you follow me, I've been like 100%, 100%, 100%. Hey, man, well, I mean, here's the thing. I'm 100% confident that Bitcoin is going to be 150K eventually. And I'm 100% confident that the meme coins as a ratio of Bitcoin's success will be astronomically higher than where they are today. So if you just hold spot and you chill, and I mean, that's the tough part, man. If you get 1 to 2 years of downtrend in the S&P, we're fucked, man.
I
I am scared because of the stock market. That's the only thing that puts true fear into me right now, man. But other than that, yeah, our base case, we just go up only in November. You know what I mean? All I'm doing, it's like I'm shifting from 100% of focus on this base case, which is we go up only in November. And I'm toning it down. I'm like 70-30 now about the base case. And I'm not discounting an ultimate top in the stock market, which is possible. And I know how easily we can blow through this top and just bull market continues, right? Like that's our base case, 70-30. But I think there's a real chance. A 30% chance to me is a very high chance of a top that destroys us.
You say 30% chance that we get destroyed.
I think, yeah, that's a very high chance. That scares me. Am I gonna sell? Fuck no. Because once again, my life doesn't change if we go down, but it does change if we go up. Like I said, I'm rich if we go up.
I mean, that's
I'll
fair.
still be able to afford. I eat steak every single night for dinner, and I drink strawberry smoothies every single day. I'm gonna be able to afford that even if we nuke
You
80% from.
understand the power of the strawberry smoothie crash. Not enough study it.
Dude, I'm gonna have enough for what I care about, really. So going
Which is
down will
steak and
not.
smoothies. Is that what you're saying?
Steak and smoothies and just train, man. So I'm fine, but it's just like, when everyone is 100% confident and we all believe, yes, bull run coming, everything is gonna magically, come together and we're gonna pump and everything's gonna be so beautiful and we're all gonna get rich. It's like, yes, that's what I've been saying. That's what I've been believing until, well, I've been saying that. And once again, that's our base case, bro. Because as you can see, every single time almost after the election, we go up only. Almost every single time. The times we didn't, it was financial
Crash,
ruin.
I know that you respect technicals and you're a trader. The way I see this chart, which is others, which is our shitcoin mega index, we've been in a downtrend for quite some time. Lower highs, lower lows for 7 months. And we finally, just for the first time, put in a potential higher low, market structure break to the upside, higher high with a higher low. That's bullish after 7 months. That's objectively that's bullish. It's hard to be bearish that.
Okay, fine. Let me show you my screen, man.
Are you
Um,
bearish this chart?
no, I'm not, but
Okay.
higher highs, higher lows is gay shit. Let me tell you why.
What does that even mean, bro?
So,
Okay, go ahead.
okay.
Go
Look,
ahead.
I already have this drawn. Look at this. I remember everyone was saying higher highs here, for example. And they were saying higher lows here, and then
But
we
the
collapse.
difference is you had a high time frame
Everyone,
break of structure. You had a high time frame break of structure, and also those are it's higher highs, but they're higher lows. They're sending it higher to send it lower. That's a bear flag. Like if you inverted that chart, that's a bear
okay,
flag.
but see, as bullish as we are on that total chart, you can say they're sending it higher to send it lower there too. Higher highs and higher lows is the biggest bullshit, man. And you know what everyone does? They're like, oh, it broke my structure. I must get bearish on the retest here, like 60% off the all-time high. They're like, now I'm officially bearish. And then they're like, it breaks down, here. They're like, oh no, we lost the range. And they're like, I must short it right here. So all this higher, low, higher BS is all BS, man, in my opinion. So I mean, and here's the thing. You could come up here, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And then right here, they're still gonna say it's a higher low. Like it's all bullshit,
I'm
you
stealing
know?
the screen back.
It's so
This is what you're talking about, but I inverted it. Okay. This right here, this is not a good example. Like you're in a downtrend right here, just like you are here. This is the scenario you gave, but I inverted it. It's not even close to the same. This was moving up, this one's falling down. They're building it the exact same way. So it's I mean, I can put you back on. I just want to show you like that's like objectively that doesn't make sense. Like that's not the same pattern. Like this inverted is the same pattern.
But you're looking at one pattern. I'm showing you objectively how many times people sit there and scream higher lows and higher this, and it's just goes down, right?
Where?
So
Like show me on Bitcoin or
I
SPX. Like
just
when
I just showed you on Bitcoin where people are still thinking it's higher highs and higher lows. So when you look at a higher high or a higher low, it's subjective on what you want to consider the higher high or the higher low. Because look here, yeah, in this range of 30K to 48K, there's making higher highs and higher lows. And then in hindsight, everyone's like, oh, it was a bear flag. But in the moment, people are like, oh, yes, yes, guys, after months of downtrend, we're finally making our first higher lows and our higher highs. We're looking really good, guys. And then it collapses on them. So
okay, this is the difference in the structure. Okay. This is the difference in the structure. You're right. Like this right here is an uptrend, right? Like there's your low, there's your high, higher low. I don't know. That's
oh my gosh,
internal,
let's go
right?
all in bullish, all
Right.
in on
Higher
higher
low,
highs.
and then you broke structure, right? At this point, now you have to be cautious because you broke structure. This is supply. We never had a structure like this on others, right? Like they're sending this lower, in my opinion, to send it higher. So for example, if we came back up to here after falling for this long, I mean, you can see the difference in these structures. Like this one is clearly sending it lower right here. Like this is falling and this one is rising, right? But if for whatever reason we came up here and we did this and then lost it, then that's super bearish, right? If we did that, there was no distribution here. There was no distribution. And furthermore, this one was coming back into retest like high time frame supply right here, where this structure is actually coming back into retest high time frame demand. Like this is the big difference. Like they're nothing alike in my opinion. This one was retesting supply, deviation trap. This one's retesting demand, and they're falling the exact opposite way from each other. I don't know if you would
Okay.
disagree, but
I'll share my screen of another example then. Um, like I said, for me, higher highs, higher lows, it's not analysis that I'll ever like look at really. Like, because do you remember this downtrend, man, in the S&P, for
of
example?
course, yeah.
So I flipped bullish on the S&P, by the way, right here. Okay. It's on my video, and I had it pulled up yesterday when I was making a video. I was literally like screaming at some guy's YouTube comment, and he's like, zoom out of the S&P chart, and do you not see those lower highs? Right. So lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. And so everyone and their mothers thought, oh, lower highs, lower lows, lower lows, lower lows. Everyone and their mothers right here thought, okay, we're gonna nuke lower to sub
Right, but
$3,000
when we
S&P.
put in that bounce right below where you flipped in your circle, that was a higher low. That's where we're at right now for crypto, bro. That is a perfect example. It literally looks the same too, right there.
Yeah,
That
and I'm
higher
not
low
bearish
is the
on that
trigger.
chart, right? I'm not bearish on that chart at all. But I'm just saying I don't use higher highs and higher lows as analysis because actually what most people do is see, I'm betting that we're going to break out here while other people are betting we're going to break down. So someone has to be wrong so that someone has to be right. I'm not bearish on our altcoin chart there at all. Like I said, our base case, we go up only soon in November. Really, we should start going up only now. But where is it? I'm waiting for it.
It's almost here, bro. Any day now. Any day. Here, let me do this. Okay. We're coming back to me now. Ready? Okay,
Yeah.
this I love this example that you just gave right here. I love it because that is literally what we're doing
It's very
right.
similar to that. Yeah, it's great.
Very similar.
That's a thing though, right? You realize what I've been saying is that if I never looked at the stock market, I'd have zero fear in me, right? If I didn't look at the stock market, I only looked at crypto. My only fear stems from the stock market, not from crypto charts.
Right, but I'm telling you also there's not a reason to be afraid of equities right now. If they break structure, then let's talk about it, right? And if you happen to spec the top, I mean that's skill that like I can't do that. I can't spec the top before there's a catalyst or bad data or a break of structure. I don't know, you're a magician. If you do it, you're literally a magician. I don't see the reason that
I believe it's far more likely to be a local top than an ultimate top in the stock market, right? I am just the main base case for me is we top into the election, right? And then we go up only after the election. Well, what I'm showing people is that don't discount that your local top could turn into an ultimate top. Things could get worse than we thought, and things can get in the way of you getting rich right now when you want it, you know?
I mean, I can't
Believe
say
me,
that.
I'm bullish. I'm bullish on crypto charts. My fear comes from the stock market.
So, yeah, I mean, this is where you got bullish, like right in here, this blue area. And that was a good spot, even if it was a hair early before this drop, because it's like, you mean you see the shift of trend here, where like you're putting in these lows, and then suddenly you get these higher lows for the first time in a year. That's exactly what we're doing right now with crypto. And I know we're saying one and the same thing. You're just worried about equities. But I can't fade this. Like we're right here right now. We're
Yeah, so
right
you
here.
know what this all ties into is that stocks still top in October, but we go up only, you know, regardless if stock market has a local top here. That's what this points to.
I'm cool with equities locally pulling back, giving you your 5 or
Yeah,
6%
I'm
correction.
also I'm also cool with equities locally topping and pulling back as long as that local top doesn't evolve into something much worse. You know? That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying is if this local top turns into something that's not a local top, because that's the thing. I at minimum believe it's a local top. You know, so I'm just saying, man, 3 of the 6 election years, really bad shit has happened in the market for stocks. And if really bad shit happened in stocks, you know, say goodbye to our crypto for now, you know? But I'm not betting on that. I'm not
No,
counting on that. If that was what I was betting on or counting on, I would have sold. You realize that, right? Like I am all in
I know.
long, but I'm telling everyone if there's something that's going to get in the way of us having this bull run that absolutely everyone is counting on, it's an equities crash that no one expects or anticipates from this local top that could actually turn into an ultimate top. But God, gosh dang, I believe it is a local
But
top
that's
going
like
into the
saying, bro,
ultimate
every
top.
time SPX is in price discovery, oh, something could happen and blow it up. It's like I don't know what that would be. Like what maybe you mentioned it in your video, but like what is it gonna be? Like what's gonna nuke it? You know? Like who's gonna implode? Like where are the mortgage delinquencies? You know, where are the layoffs? Where are the initial claims rising? Where's the inflation rising?
That all happens later, bro. That all happens later. Don't
All right.
worry.
Now
But
I'll
the
be
thing
waiting.
is, I'm not sitting there counting on the market to collapse. I am in fear telling everyone, "Hey, guys, there's a chance that we're all fucked if this local top isn't just a local top in the stock market." And while nobody even sits there and considers it, everyone, including myself, has been cocky that crypto is just gonna go up and up and up, and we're gonna be above 150K soon. Well, we're all gonna be poor, okay? That's all I'm saying. If this local top turns into something worse than that as we actually start to go down into the election.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. I hope that we don't nuke. That's all I'll say. Because I'm looking at the structure and this looks really, really constructive.
It looks incredibly bullish. That's why I said if I never looked at stock charts, I wouldn't have an ounce of fear in me. I have fear not because of crypto charts, only because of where stocks are, man.
All right. Well, I hope you're wrong, but fading you has never been
But
something that
here's the
has worked
thing,
well for a lot of people. So
but what am I wrong about? Because I'm not putting my money on a market crash. My money is all in long.
here's the thing. It's a win-win-win-win for you because either you call the Pico top of the S&P 500 and it's legendary, or everybody gets rich and you're wrong and nobody cares. Like there's no downside here. Like I see the vulnerable setup and I don't think you're calling like a 5-year recession or something. But I'm like, there's not really downside. Like, there's a vulnerable setup. It's worth noting. And if it doesn't work, you actually make more money, and so do your followers. So it's like win-win, right? Either you're hedged and you warn people, or like we get rich. So it's
No, but
cool.
I'm not hedged. Like
You
I
have an
only
ETH
have
short, don't you?
no. I have an ETH. That's what you didn't let me finish my sentence. I'm gonna
Okay.
say I'm not hedged enough because you know if the stock market topped there badly, but this is what I'm saying. Now I should have just kept everything to myself. I should just let everyone get fucked if we got fucked. You know what I mean? Because what am I doing ultimately with my money? I'm all in long, right? But what I'm saying is local top in the stock market going into election. We better hope that doesn't infect the price of crypto. It hasn't the last two times. And then hope that a local top doesn't evolve into an ultimate top. Because I could see it happening, man.
Okay. All right, bro. Well, we've been going for about 2 hours. Anything else we should talk about quickly? I feel like 2 hours is pretty good, but
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
down.
if you have any altcoins you want to cover, because ultimately look at the altcoin chart right here, right? It's
Yeah.
mega bullish. What's our base case? We go up only starting in November.
Yeah. I
And I
mean,
and I say, what if there's and I'm saying here, local top, but have fear of an ultimate top in the stock market is what I'm telling people. Have fear of it because it is really possible. It's not what I'm counting on. It's not what I'm betting on, but the pattern is there, and it should strike fear into all of us because if the stock market ultimate top there when no one expects it, when nobody believes it could even be possible, we're all going to lose 80 to 90% of our net worth.
that would suck. I don't know what
That's
else
all.
to say. That would suck. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have like I mean, I can share what I'm long. You already know like I'm just long like Pepe, Brett, Andy, like I own like Wolf, like I'm into the boys club. I know you're just more focused on Brett. And rightfully so, but I don't really even need to get into them like cuz it's like
You
this
went
chart
over it
right
all.
here like others is the rising tide that lifts all ships, right? Like if this chart on the left breaks up, it's turn your brain off season. It's like everything pumps. So it's like this is the only thing that matters is like can Bitcoin go into price discovery and can this others chart hold this breakout and actually move higher? And if so, you're going to be able to basically long any altcoin you want. There's going to be outperformers, of course, and I think that I'm allocated in them as I'm sure
Yeah.
you would agree you are as well, Crash, but it's like we just need the tailwinds of majors doing well. We need ETH back above 3K. We need Bitcoin pushing 70 to 80K. And then it's alt season. But,
Yeah.
you know,
You know what though? Before we end the stream, that something came to mind for me.
yeah.
Um, Okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep, you're up. Yep.
Okay. So take a look at Bitcoin over the stock market and ETH over the stock market. So, okay, first off, pretend like you don't even know what this ticker is. According to a lot of you guys who look at higher lows and breakdowns and retest of structure,
Is this the ETH
if you
SPY
didn't,
chart? Like ETH
yes,
divided by SPY? Okay.
yes. So if you didn't know what the ticker was, though, freaking all of you guys would be shorting this right now, right? I bet you 99% of you. I so this is why this brings me into my point of, look, if you look at Bitcoin versus the stock market though, look, Bitcoin didn't break that trend. ETH did, right? So, you know, based off how a lot of people look at it, this is why I believe that if the stock market underperforms here, that Ethereum and altcoins would suffer, and Bitcoin, for example, could chill between 55 and 65K. But what would actually struggle would be Ethereum and altcoins even more. So yeah, just look at that. And that's what I'm saying. If the stock market negatively affects our prices, last 2 election years, Bitcoin didn't give a shit if the stock market was dropping in October, right? But so far for now this month, the stock market's performance has been affecting us. So if it continues to keep up, then I think Bitcoin is just going to keep outperforming for now. And it's Ethereum and altcoins that will struggle the most if we stay tied to stock market price action.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I just will show you one chart.
Okay.
Here's ETH USD at that same time frame. You can save it. It can be saved.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. Well, but here right now, according to a lot of you guys, you'd be like, oh, it broke structure and it's retesting it as bearish, right? Whereas there, it didn't retest or anything. It just went through it again. You know what I mean? That's why personally, I don't care so much about like these, what people say, oh, we broke structure, we broke this, we broke that. Because I've seen so many times how you break structure and then you just go up only, for example.
Yeah.
Or, oh, we're breaking out price discovery and that's the top. Caspa just did it. Bitcoin did at 69K. You know what I mean? So many times you're breaking out price discovery, you broke you left behind the old structure and it's the top. Oh, you're breaking down. If we lose this level, lights out, and it's the bottom. So I don't care about breaking structure, retesting this structure and stuff. You know what I mean?
Do you think that this is this is Bitcoin SPX? Like, do you think that this is a bullish looking chart or a bearish looking chart? Like the way that you look at it.
This is
'Cause
bullish. This is bullish, right? And
so it's like it
that
doesn't
ties.
matter what ETH looks like because you know that like all we're trading, whether it's Brett or like others or like all we're doing with anything is trading Bitcoin through different vehicles. Like that. It's if Bitcoin goes up, then it will drag up ETH and Sol and everything else kicking and screaming whether it likes it or not. So I'm like, I don't really care about the ETH structure. What I care about is how Bitcoin looks, I guess, against these pairs like SPX or against the dollar. Because if Bitcoin looks good,
Right,
it's
but
gonna
here's
save
the
ETH.
thing. If Bitcoin just keeps going here without breaking out, but Ethereum keeps underperforming the stock market, well, the stock market dips 4 to 8%, then Ethereum can go to what? Low, right? While Bitcoin kind of maintains where it's at roughly.
Yeah, I mean, weird bottom.
Look at that top in July, by the way. Right, so if you put a horizontal line there,
You talking
no,
about
not in 2023, I think, top of July. Yeah, that midpoint. So how many people would be like, "Oh no, Ethereum broke back into the range. Oh no, it broke into the structure." See, I don't care about that. But hey, remember you were showing me that Ethereum chart earlier in the stream, how, hey, if Ethereum broke back down below into the range, it would be bad. Well, that's what it's done here in the S&P or versus the S&P. But I still think Ethereum's going to absolutely destroy and crush the stock market when we're in our bull run, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I get it. I just think it's like not to dismiss this because like it should be noted, of course. Like this is
But what
clearly a
I'm saying
valid trend
for
line. Like this is how I view the trend line. We're just sitting kind of right below it. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4.
are
Now
you
we're
in
just
log or are you in,
this is
non
linear. Yeah,
Okay,
this
I was on log, so, then that's another thing on log. For me, it looks different, yeah. It looks like, "Oh, no, we
yeah.
broke it and we retested it." See, I don't care about that shit because look, you just did it on linear scale and it wasn't like that. So, to me, I don't care because actually I'm bullish on that. I'm not bearish on that overall, you know? I mean, I think you're far closer to a bottom in Ethereum's performance versus stock market than you are. Well, now you just flipped it, so it made me feel
I was
weird, but
yeah.
you're far closer to a bottom there than you are going way lower. So you see, like I'm bullish on Ethereum versus the stock market, except I know that if it keeps kind of underperforming for now, a little bit under here, while the market's going down 4 to 8%, that looks like Ethereum going down to 1,800 in that case.
Yeah. All right. Let's call it here. This has been a great stream. Guys, whoa, that's close. All right, guys, thanks so much for being here. I say Crash and I do these every few months. So thanks for tuning in. Had a good time. Hopefully we don't lose it all. And my background doesn't happen because that background is gonna happen right there if equities nuke. So let's hope that we don't get that. Crash, thanks for doing this, man. I'm happy we were able to put this together kind of quickly last minute. And guys, if you don't follow Crash and you're on the BB channel, definitely give him a follow. He's got some awesome plays. I know we talked a lot about equities, but he really is like a crypto guy. Like he's got a lot of really great plays. He's kind of a meme coin legend if you don't know him. I feel like most of you probably do know him, but like he's one of like the top meme coin guys for sure that you can follow. And I know you guys at BB love meme coins. So definitely give him a follow. And I guess if you don't follow me, follow the BB YouTube channel and also my Twitter. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for being here. Crash, appreciate your time, bro. And maybe we'll slip in another one before the end of the year. Who knows? Be a good
Cool.
time to check in.
Sounds good, man. Talk later.
All right. See you guys. Thanks.